and it's an interest of deep concern to the industry for some pretty obvious reasons. The industry, there are times when crashes occur where motor carriers feel that it was not preventable to that individual motor carrier or that driver. So how do you get at the question of preventability and non-preventability in an analysis across over 100,000 crashes a year? 60 of those injury crashes, almost 4,000 fatal crashes, and the remainder, somewhere in there, up to over 100,000 in tow away. How do you actually do that analysis? So as I said, the FMCSA has been working pretty hard to try and identify an approach. And we thought we were close. We were close to actually putting out a proposal, what we call a Federal Register notice, this month of March. But in the process, as we do with many of our initiatives, we took the proposal, the crash accountability proposal, which is part of CSA, would have been part of CSA, would be part of CSA, to our Motor Carrier Safety Advisory Committee. That advisory committee is made up of a cross-section of folks that are very interested in commercial vehicle safety. There are company owners on that board, there are association members, there are safety advocates, there are individuals who have been victims of crashes. There are insurance providers, there are enforcement providers, labor, bus operators. All in all, it's 19 members, and we took the proposal to them. And through that process last month, the advisory committee members, both individually, not as a group, but individually, raised some questions that I frankly found tough to answer. How do you ensure that in looking at a police accident report, which would have been the main vehicle for the process, that that's the final police accident report? All of you know there are police accident reports preliminary, there are final, and there are final. And there's sometimes another final after the final investigation. How do you make sure we're getting the right one? How do we get a report from the company but not a report from an individual who may have been impacted by that crash? Once you open that process up, how do you make sure you can manage the process on over 100,000 crashes and ensure that it's a fair process? And ultimately, once you've gotten through all of that, and it's just a significant expense when you envision that full process, does it make the outcome of CSA a better outcome? Does it improve safety? Is it the fact, and it was our hypothesis, it's our hypothesis, that if we isolate all of the crash data we have to just preventable crashes, then we'll be able to highlight the carriers putting people at risk at a higher level more intensely. We haven't tested that hypothesis. We need to test it. It is a fact that past crash history, regardless of fault or preventability, is a very strong predictor, one of the strongest predictors of a future crash outcome. That's just a fact. That's what the data says. What we don't know is if isolating just preventable crashes gives us even a clearer focus on the most unsafe carriers. Do they present a 5-time higher risk? Do they present a 10-time higher risk? Is it just 1.5 times higher? If it doesn't show a demonstrably higher risk, is it worth the investment of the public's money in this kind of an effort, which is a significant effort? So those are the kinds of questions that we didn't have answers to following the presentation to the advisory committee, and those are the kind of questions that I'm determined we'll be able to answer.